Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Miami Call-In Show live, presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Jay Gonzalez. Happy Thursday, everyone. I'm happy to be back. Been gone for a couple weeks from the Call-In Show. Nothing really going on over the last couple weeks. Thought it'd be nice to take a little bit off, but let's get right into it. It's been a little slow. Nothing totally going on. Obviously, you got the Canes from last year that are, they're done with Miami. They're heading to the draft. They're taking the step to the next level. The combines next week. We can talk that. We can talk spring ball, which is coming up very, very soon, which I'm very excited for. We could talk a lot of different things. I'm very excited for it all. I'm going to post a link right now. All you got to do, click on the link, put in your browser, and talk to me whatever is on your mind, whatever you want to talk about. There's a lot, not a whole lot going on right now, obviously in the hurricane space, but whatever, even basketball and baseball, which has been really fun. It's been a fun time right now, and yeah, I got really nothing else to say. I have been looking at recruiting. Obviously, I'm very in the know on it all. There hasn't really been a whole lot going on. I mean, the only real news, I guess you could say, Jalen Brewster, the 5-star defensive lineman that is committed to Texas Tech, locked in an official visit with Miami. That will be in late May, I believe. He's considered the top defensive lineman in the country. Be a fun one for sure if Miami were to find a way to flip him, but he is it's definitely a tough one for sure. Thank you. As always, go Canes. Appreciate it. Yeah, click on the link. Ask me questions in the chat. Whatever you guys got to say. I mean, the whole point of the call-in show for you guys and the viewers, you guys ask me questions, whatever you guys want to say, whatever discussions you want to talk about. I'm all for it. I do have some things to talk about if no one texts, no one chats, whatever it may be. But yeah, it's nice to be back. It's been a little bit, but yeah, I'll give it a couple minutes. Post the link one more time. Again, let some people come in. I know it's new. It's relatively new, I guess, because in and out and all that. But we're here for the off season. We're ready for it all. As always, let's go. I mean, it's been really fun right now. I will say, as a student at UM right now, has been the most fun I think you could probably say in a long time for UM athletics. Obviously, what football did last year, I think that momentum, and I said this on Monday, I think that momentum has really provided a lot of energy and stuff to the teams in the future, or not only the teams in the future, but the other Miami teams, like the baseball team and the basketball team. Baseball had an incredible walk-off 2 nights ago. The whole night at Watsco and at the Light were some of the coolest nights, one of the coolest nights I've ever seen. You got, one game going on, then everyone heads to Watsco, watches Miami win in a thriller against Virginia Tech. They're a tournament team. Everyone goes back to the Light, win in 13. Really fun, like one of the coolest nights I've seen in a long time for Miami athletics. And I think that kind of speaks to how well football has been to everything. I think it's kind of been a huge motivator and kind of has built the momentum to what Miami looks like right now. It's been really fun. Gio, we can talk about anything. I'm cool about anything, talking about anything. I do have some just random stuff. We can get into like some position overviews, just kind of talking. Yeah, there's not much to talk about. Might keep it short today. We'll see. We're gauging, how the activity, what's going on right now. I heard about this one a lot. There's a couple things about Pat Surtain. I mean, I love the fact that Pat Surtain he's a Miami guy. He's been a coach at Heritage for the last few years. He knows the system. He knows South Florida. He's been a part of it for a long time. Yeah, he coached at Heritage for 5 years. Was FSU's D-backs coach. He fits. In my opinion, I think he fits Miami's culture. I think I like him a lot personally. I think he'd be a cool guy. I think he fits everything Miami would need, especially when one thing you always want is to continue to dominate South Florida. Bring in a guy that was the head coach of American Heritage, one of the best high schools in South Florida. Having that kind of continuing that hold on South Florida. It's always nice to bring in another guy. Look, it totally sucks to lose Zach Etheridge. Etheridge, in my opinion, was like, I mean, I said on Monday about how big his influence was for Keontae Scott. I mean, Keontae Scott probably doesn't come to Miami without Zach Etheridge, and losing him, but him going to the NFL is huge for him, and it speaks on what Chris Paul's been able to do. That he's building. He's got coaches now that are so talented that they're going to the NFL. They're going to the next level. Matt Merritt, the running backs coach, another one. I'm going to talk about the running back room in a bit, but he'd be a really nice fit in my opinion. I think Pat Surtain was a guy that was getting. I mean, he worked for the Dolphins as their D-backs coach. He was getting talks about working in the NFL. To me, that's an NFL ready guy that could absolutely play another role. And then as a player, he's a Hall of Fame player. Son's one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. Like he's got at least, he's got the requirements at a minimum. He's got all those things. To me, it seems like someone that you would have there for a year or two. Like if he really excels at his job, he'll get a head coaching job right away. Kind of similar to when Dion had a role with FSU, and then FSU lost him to Colorado or Jackson State, and then Jackson State to Colorado. So that's kind of the way that I think that Pat Surtain would want it if he goes to Miami. I think it's a cool fit. I think it'd be a really fun fit overall. I'm trying to think because I've seen a couple guys linked to the running back room, the running back coach, but no one really specifically. I think Matt Merritt is a kind of a tough loss. I mean, me and Shay have talked about this one a lot about Matt Merritt. We were at the Cotton Bowl. We interviewed Shannon Dawson, obviously the OC. And when we were talking to him, one of the things he had mentioned was with Matt Merritt that when he subbed in Marty Brown for that last drive, he made the call to do it. He told him, "Hey, put in Marty Brown for this drive because he brings a lot of tools that are really important for late game situations." That move ended up being the difference because they salted away that drive. Marty Brown was really huge. I thought it was a huge, huge thing for him, and it helped. It worked pretty well. I agree. I very surprised that they had fired him. Look, FSU is in total disarray. Could have been. There's a lot of different things. And obviously, I'm not going to. He was dismissed. He was dismissed by the program. To me, that implies like something could have happened internally within the org. FSU's always got. There probably was something going on at FSU with him and Norvell. It's not like FSU had a great year. It could have been a lot of different things. Obviously, Norvell's most certainly on the hot seat, and FSU themselves are millions of dollars in debt. He'd be a really fun fit though for us, and I think it fits. I think it totally fits. And running back room, as I was trying to say, I really like. I'm happy that Etheridge and Merritt. They're both going to the NFL, both with the Cardinals, which is cool. I'm hoping. I think it speaks to how well Chris Paul's been able to kind of put these guys up there and say, my assistants have done a great job. They're going to find really great jobs. I'm pretty confident that Heatherman's going to get a head coaching job, or Dawson's going to get they're going to take the next step within the next year or so. And you really got to cherish some of the guys that you have. Jason Taylor, I mentioned that on Monday. I was like, Jason Taylor is 100% gonna get a head coaching job, or not a head coaching job, but at least some higher level job very soon, considering the incredible work that he's done with that defensive line over the last couple of years. It has been so much fun to watch what he's done with that defensive line, and we have him for another year. He's going to transform the guys that we currently have. There's a lot of different guys that you're looking at. You're like, it's pretty awesome that you have them here right now. Kind of really enjoy these guys, really enjoy what these coaches have done. It's like, yeah, I would love that. I think that'd be awesome. But I fear currently, Gio, that Jason Taylor might be getting looked at by the NFL, like to that kind of level, like going back to the Dolphins or the Saints, some of his old homes. That's how highly I think some guys are on Jason Taylor. I can't obviously more or less guessing, but the way that Jason Taylor's talked about or in league circles, he's bound to get a job very soon. Heatherman as well. Heatherman, the transformation obviously that he did, and the fact that we have him for another year. We have all these assistants for another year. Really enjoy that you have these assistants, because if you do have like a mass exodus of these coaches, it might be a little bit of a transition period for Cristobal to bring in new staff members and them having to be successes the way that Etheridge was, Matt Merritt was, potentially, in the coming years, Dawson, Heatherman, Jason Taylor, whoever. I would love, look, if Heatherman gets a head coaching job and you convince Jason Taylor to be the DC of Miami, I'll take that any day of the week. I would kill for Jason Taylor as the DC. To me, I don't know if it's possible. It could be, because he maybe he does 1 year as a DC, continues to be really well, and then he goes and finds a job somewhere else. I don't know. But it does speak to the level of where Miami is. Years ago, you wouldn't really expect any Miami assistants to be leaving anywhere, and right now they're one of the hot commodities of a job. There's not really another school, I would say, that is teams are looking at all their assistants like left and right. The tight ends coach just left for Ole Miss. There's a lot of different guys that are just getting poached here and there, and yeah, it sucks. Tells you where the program is, and that feels pretty good. It's a pretty good place to be at, in my opinion. I think. I don't know. I mean, it's like it's bittersweet. You're happy for these coaches; they get to move up to the next level. They get more money. They get, they're bettering their careers. You super appreciate what they did at Miami. But then, for Miami, they gotta find a guy that can replace them, and you're hoping that the qualities that were instilled, hopefully, can kind of stay there for in the future. I guess that's what you can kind of look at, because Etheridge, I mean, totally transformed what that defensive back room looked like. He essentially brought in Keontae Scott. He played a pivotal role in transforming the way that defensive back room played, paired with obviously Heatherman. But it was the way that they operated. They did a great job, and you have to give your props to him and hope for nothing but the best for these guys going forward, and hope that Criswell can. I think Pat Surtain would be a great fit. I think he would do a really good job. So maybe, hopefully, we'll see. I guess I'll post the link one more time. I'll get into it now. I wanted to, I guess, during this kind of time, I guess we can go through some of the position rooms and what we're looking at for next year, or at least for spring ball. I'll start kind of simple. The running back room, to me, is one of the bigger, like, I'm kind of curious on, because obviously we all know that Fletcher, unless something catastrophic happens, is the RB1. He really showed it, obviously, down the stretch this year. He's in the last 3, steady climb year in, year out. He's only gotten better as the year's gone on. He took the bell cow position, and he ran with it. He was probably, in my opinion, I think he was Miami's most important player in the postseason by far. A&M, 172 yards. That offense only moved because of him. And then he had the 60-yard run that set up the Malachi Toney touchdown. Ole Miss felt like he had 22 carries, 133 yards, and it felt like every single run he was just about to break free at any point in time. That is like, that kind of the way that you look at him is like, he was essentially, Miami could get a first down every 3 plays because of Fletcher was just going to fall forward for 3 yards. He was that good. And then against Indiana in the Natty, if he doesn't score that 52-yard touchdown, that offense maybe just doesn't show up and they lose in a laugher. Instead, he puts them right back in that game, and they make that game as competitive as it was. And you kind of look and you're like, Mark Fletcher doesn't do that. Who knows? He woke up that offense in the third quarter. He's clearly the bell cow. He's clearly the RB1. His physicality and his ability to also be super fast. Him in the A-gap, obviously we joked about it a lot, but him in the A-gap worked tremendously towards the end of the year. He was pivotal when it mattered most. He had an incredible back half of the year. One of the best postseasons I've ever seen from a running back. Just dominant, so big, so important at all stages of the playoff run. You can't even, nothing really else you could say. But the RB2 position, to me, is what I keep looking at. I'm like, there's a lot to do. We're gonna have to see during spring ball, which I will be there. I'll obviously be updating you guys on what I see during spring ball. But I'm very curious to see what that RB2 room looks like, because week 1 against Notre Dame, the expectation, to me at least, was Lyle, some combination of Lyle and Fletcher as the 1 and 2, and then Marty Brown at the 3. Jordan Lyle goes down against Notre Dame, never really is able to get his feet back. He's never really kind of able to settle himself in and be the running back that we thought he was going to be right away. Dealt with injury, the entire year. It really sucked. I thought he was going to have a really awesome year. His elusiveness and his speed, it's a really nice yin and yang, I guess you could say, with Fletcher that I really, I enjoy that pairing. Instead, Fletcher becomes the RB1 and Marty Brown kind of slots into the RB2. And I thought Marty Brown did a relatively solid job in the RB2 role. This was the best running back in FCS football a year prior. And I thought in the FBS level, I thought he played as good as he probably could. Had 9 touchdowns. He was great in the goal line. Felt like you give him a ball up the middle, he was going to get it. He was so good, at least with ball security. He was great in the pass pro. He was great in the receiving game. It felt like there are a lot of intangibles that he has that kept him in that role. You look at some of the games where Matt Merritt, Cristobal, and Dawson, and even Mirabal all kind of came together and said, let's end the game with Marty Brown because we know that we can trust him. A, for ball security. B, for pass pro, and C, just doing, putting his head down, getting the yards that you need to kind of saw away that game. That to me is what I saw from Marty Brown. And he showed that the game I always look at is the Florida game. He had 130 total yards in that game. But his biggest moment from that game was that fourth quarter drive. I think there's like 8 minutes left. Miami's only up by like 6 in a game. They kind of they kept, Florida stayed in that game. The offense wasn't really moving in a really brutal weather game. Marty Brown was the main guy in that drive. He was responsible for a majority of those yards in that game. He essentially, in my opinion, I think he single-handedly salted away that game against Florida, ran in for the touchdown, and kind of ended that game in total against Florida. Ohio State, I just mentioned it. He was the guy that they turned to. They said, hey, salt away this game against Ohio State, end it. He gets not only the touchdown, but he also was getting big runs, just being able to be consistent within those things. His intangibles kept them in the moment, kept them in the game at all times. I think that, to me, I look at as like, that's going to keep him within the RB2 role at all times. Just that alone. He doesn't have maybe the speed of Jordan Lyle or Gerard Pringle. He may not have the physicality like as like what Mark Fletcher brings, but he has a lot of the intangibles that none of them have. He's great in the pass pro. He was great in the goal line. He's great at all time in a lot of different situations, and I 100% expect them to still be competing for the RB2 spot with the other two. Thank you, Falconer, for the 199 super sticker. Happy to see you as always. The next guy, obviously, I just mentioned, Jordan Lyle. Jordan Lyle was the first running back on the field against Notre Dame, and then he got hurt. Pretty sure, at least. And then it went to Fletcher, obviously. He showed the talent. He showed his skills against, in his freshman year, even as he was the RB3 in his freshman year, didn't really get a lot of carries with Damian Martinez and Fletcher in the way. But when in garbage time or when he wanted to prove himself, he showed it. I mean, obviously, you point at his 91-yard touchdown against USF in Tampa, electric run. He showed a lot of different flashes. His speed was there. His elusiveness was there. When he was out on the sticks, he was there. He was great in the passing game. He needs to be. I think there was a lot that you'd be really excited for, but because of the injury, it kind of totally derailed everything. I do expect them to be. I mean, he chose to stay at Miami. He chose to return to Miami. The same way Fletcher chose to return to Miami, and Marty Brown and Pringle all chose to return to Miami. To me, it tells me that they want to be doing a lot of rotations with the running back. They want to do a lot of different things with the running back room, and kind of they all believe that these guys are going to get their own fair share and contribute to what to me will be. I've said this a lot. I think it'll be kind of in between the last three. The last 2 years, it'll be in between it. I think it'll be better than last year's offense. But I don't know if it can get better than the Cam Ward offense, which is still pretty damn good. How many helicopters can you get out there, Falconer? Thank you for the 305. I would love it. Can you guarantee that South Bend has a helipad? If you can guarantee that, I'm in. I'm in. What was this? Oh, Lyle. I do think Lyle obviously will be competing for the RB2 spot. Again, we're that's all of this is really speculative for fall ball, or for not fall ball, for spring ball. Which obviously is not for another month, and it's, we can't see anything was really going on. But the way that they're very high on Lyle, and the way that Lyle, he chose to come back to Miami, to me, it tells me that he's expecting to slot into the RB2 role and kind of go back to what you kind of thought would happen, with that yin and yang of his speed and Fletcher's physicality and that kind of stuff. I don't know. And I mean, the last guy in terms of the RB2 spot, Gerard Pringle, again, he chose to transfer, or he went into the portal and then withdrew, came back. Tells me that probably was looking for more money, which go get your money. Probably came back to Miami because either they match his contract or they guaranteed more playing time. And if they did guarantee his playing time, you can kind of see why. Obviously, he didn't play a whole lot in the playoffs. I think he only had a handful of carries total in the playoffs, like one against A&M. But when Fletcher went down with injury, and they were kind of like getting him back, but slowly, he showed the potential that you kind of expected, that he saw in garbage time. He got the starting nod, or he got the RB2 spot, and he took off. He totally took off. He's so much fun to watch. His speed is there. His agility is there. He breaks so many tackles. He's so much fun that in everything he does. Great when he goes outside the sticks. He was great in the receiving game. He had that really nice touchdown against Virginia Tech. I think he had one against Pitt as well. He had 3 games, the 3-game stretch where he had 10 plus carries, which coincided with Fletcher being, kind of sidelined. Showed up, 17 carries for 116 yards against NC State, and that game being a total blowout, and then 10 for 82 against Pitt. I want to see what he's going to look like. I would love to see him play a little bit more. I'm intrigued by that one for sure. As long as it's better. Yeah. I will 100% agree that he, in a way, that Beck did hold the offense back. I felt like there were times when you watch that offense and there were a lot of throws that either could have been made, or the way that the offense moved. You look at a lot of games like SMU, felt like he could have thrown the ball, taking more deep shots. Like they didn't take nearly as many deep shots during that season at all. Like FSU was the game they took the deep shots, and then they stopped for a significant stretch. He single-handedly lost us the Louisville game, the 4 picks, including, and some of them were just brutal throws. I love Beck. I'm appreciative of what Beck did for us this year. But from looking at it right now, of the last 3 quarterbacks between Mensah, Beck, and Ward, you're expecting Beck to probably be the worst one of the 3. But you do, he did show up when it mattered most in a lot of different spots. That Ole Miss game, made some timely throws, had obviously his touchdown run. Ohio State, that was really more. No, I thought he played. I thought he played a perfect game management football against Ohio State. This is kind of what I was leading to, Gio. I agree. It felt like there were a lot of times where he was afraid to let Beck go and turn it loose and kind of get the offense going. There were times where he did, like Ole Miss with the 52-yard bomb to Keelan Marion. But there were also some where you're a little nervous at some of the throws that he's making. He's like, can I trust this guy? There were a couple before he ended the season really strong. You had a lot of games where you're like, what kind of Carson Beck am I getting? Am I getting a Carson Beck that's going to throw very accurate? Am I going to get one that's still kind of reeling with the effects from his injury a year prior? Like, what am I going to get the Beck that's going to throw me 4 interceptions, including, some back-breaking ones that he kind of showed in that year against Georgia? Like, he had the offensive line. He had the talent. I think you could put a lot of different quarterbacks and he would have succeeded in a similar way as Beck. I still think Beck had a great year and was really important for that team. But if you did have, obviously, this is a no duh. If you have Cam Ward in that offense is better than the year prior's offense. It's significantly better if you have Cam Ward in that offense. But Cam Ward's the number 1 overall pick, and Carson Beck is a projected 5th or 6th round pick. Game manager versus a game elevator quarterback. You're talking about 2 different guys essentially. But I agree. There were a lot of times you look at Beck, and I'm very appreciative of what he did. He definitely overexceeded my expectations. It definitely exceeded my expectations for sure. But looking back at it, I do wish, I'm expecting that Mensa with this group will transform this offense similar to what it was with Ward. I think it will be better than last year's offense because I think Mensa's a better quarterback. I think the receiving room is better than it was last year, which is crazy to say. But it's 100% true. The receiving room is definitely better. The offensive line is the only concern that you can say. The offensive line, you have the exact same running back room, and that means they should develop and only get better. The offensive line is the only thing that's really going to get worse. And Mensa is in my opinion, he is a more mobile quarterback than Beck, although he doesn't run as much. More elusive, can make a lot more off-platform throws than Beck. Do a lot more things that Beck was a little more restricted. Similarly, in a way, when Tyler Van Dyke or Emory Williams was in 2023, I remember watching Emory as a true freshman, that game against Clemson and FSU, and obviously Shannon was very afraid of letting him do a lot with the ball. Beck, he had more confidence. He gave him a lot more confidence, but still, there were a couple times you're like, take the deep shot. Why am I feeling like you're just going to continue to do these smaller plays? You got a guy that you can go one-on-one with. Why not turn him loose? Why not go, give him a ball? And we didn't really see that a lot. Again, I look at the FSU game where he did it. SMU, he didn't after the JoJo touchdown and then the pick where JoJo dropped the ball or it was out of JoJo's hands. From that point on, it felt like they just did not want to throw. They did not want to let Beck really, really go loose apart from a couple of throws, just a couple of throws. I mean, it did help when you have Malachi Toney, who you give Malachi Toney in space on a screenplay, on any kind of play, he's going to turn it into a ton of yards after catch. I can see that. I understand it. But you did have some one-on-one guys. JoJo's whole role towards the end of the year was being a one-on-one guy. And they didn't connect after the SMU game. They never connected. They tried it. They never connected with each other. Keelan was a main guy on a slant. CJ Daniels, they never really went one-on-one with him. Maybe it was a separation thing, but they never really went, I'm going to go CJ Daniels one-on-one deep ball. Just never happened. And CJ Daniels was a very physical, guy that you thought that you could do it with. Next year's offense, you're going to get some different things. Van Jones I don't know where Van Jones will play. Yeah, exactly. There were, the Louisville game specifically took a lot of deep shots where I was like, was that deep shot really necessary to take in that moment? Just take the dump off, take the quick pass, take these kind of plays. Again, I felt like there were times where you didn't know what Carson Beck you were getting despite his age and seniority. It felt like you were like, am I going to get the Carson Beck that was a elite game manager against Ohio State, the best game manager in the world, it felt like? Or am I going to get the Carson Beck that is going to make some really boneheaded throws? I think of the two picks he threw against Louisville, the first two picks. Like, come on. And then even the third pick he threw, that should have been the game ender. But then Keontae Scott forced a fumble. And then he threw another pick, which was a miscommunication. So I can't totally fault him for it. But it was still I understand it was a miscommunication. I look at next year's offense. I love Cooper Barkate. I love Cooper Barkate. I think he's going to be, and you already have that connection with him and Mensa. I think they're a really great connection. Malachi Toney, best true freshman in the country. Nothing really else you could say. And then you have a lot more depth in that room. You have year 2 of Josh Moore, year 2 of Dalen Upshaw, Van Jones, the West Virginia commit, which I always forget his name. You have a lot of different guys in that receiver room that I'm really excited about and have a lot of potential. And I think it's going to be the receiver room's deeper. I think the offensive line is going to be worse, but that's kind of expected when you lose essentially majority of that offensive line. The running back room is the exact same, and you have a better quarterback than, I said it, Darian Mensah, of highly touted quarterbacks that Miami's gotten over the last 3 years, he's the highest. He was projected top 3 round pick if he went to the NFL. He chose not to. He's that now he's going to be projected top 3 round pick next year as well. Cam Ward was not. When Cam Ward got to Miami, he was a projected six round pick. He chose to go to to Miami, becomes the number 1 overall pick. Carson Beck was a first round pick, projected. Then he had a bad year at Georgia. Then he was undrafted, undrafted late round pick, goes to Miami, and his draft stock didn't really improve. It felt like it would have if, yeah. When I think about Carson Beck, for the most part, I treated him like he was a game manager, and I always just wanted him to be a game manager because I knew of the talent around him, and I knew that he was never going to be a difference maker. I think that was kind of the thing that we even said back in August. We were like, if you don't expect Carson Beck to be anything more than a game managing quarterback, and if he tries to be a difference making quarterback, it may not end well. And there were a lot of games where his interceptions totally screwed us. Even obviously the Natty. I thought he was. I didn't think he played very well in the Natty, and then he throws a very poor pass. That obviously you could debate if that was a miscommunication between him and Keelan, or if that was just a bad throw from Beck, which I think it was a bad throw from Beck. Regardless, the Louisville game was, to me, one of the worst games I've seen a quarterback play in a long time. And his SMU game, throwing the interception in overtime, was a really bad pick. He made a lot of he's always got those back-breaking picks. I mean, the stat of Carson Beck was it where he's all of Carson Beck's losses, pretty much all of them, have ended with him throwing an interception as the last offensive play, which is crazy. It's ridiculous, but that's who he is. It's kind of what his nature was. I thought he was good, not great, but sometimes the game managing was all we needed from him, and sometimes he locked in and gave us that. And I always think of Ohio State because it felt like Ohio State was one of the best games I've ever seen him play in his career. And those numbers are just, you look at those numbers. I'll pull up the numbers, but that stat line was just not like the best stat line I've ever watched ever. But if you watch that game, he went 19 of 26, 138 yards, and 1 touchdown. That's like one of, that's a game you're not really, you're maybe, if you got a backup quarterback to make that play, you'd be like, that's incredible. You're asking a top 3 quarterback to make that play. You're like, yeah, that's not a great game. But if you watch that game, it was one of the best game managing quarter performances in a big moment that you could really ask for. He made timely throws. He made all the correct reads. His run, he was great in as a runner. He took off when he needed to. That game he had 7 carries for 23 yards. He did what he needed to do. He had the whole play design was perfect. The play to Mark Fletcher for that touchdown, which was an off schedule play, was supposed to be a run, a QB run, and then he saw Fletcher and he threw it to him like that. Everything he did in that game, in my opinion, was like perfect football from a game managing perspective, and that's what I wish we had from him for every game. And we just didn't get that from every game. If we got that from every game, I thought he would, he wins us the national championship. He's in that role of, first of all, maybe gets his number retired. But he's also in that role of some of the other, quarterbacks where he had that. So, yeah. This is a really good question. I would say this. I've been very clear that I love this defensive line room. I love the way our defensive line looks, and I love the edge, everything they have. Damon Wilson, I think, will take over what Mezzi was doing, where Damon Wilson was just. Damon Wilson kind of fits what Mezzi does, where they just they wreak havoc and they make them they just do what they need to do. They're going to give you the production. They're going to give you the sack numbers. They're very, very good at what they do as a pass rusher. On the other side, I think you're going to see it be maybe a rotation at first, but I think eventually you're going to see someone take over that spot. My first guy in mind was Marquise Lightfoot, and I've been saying Lightfoot. I've been very high on Lightfoot. I know he had, he came in as a rotation guy for Bane and Mezzi at a lot of times over the course of last year, but it felt like I think he can. I think Lightfoot can set the edge. That's my personal thought. I think he can. I look at some of his games that he had. Obviously, if you look at his worst was just the SMU play, the timeout, and then him, that whole ordeal. But overall, I'm very high on him. Maybe just from the way that I saw him play it a lot of times, like the Indiana game, that sack he had just dominated that offensive lineman. And I think that to me gives me a lot more hope and potential for him that he can kind of take over that role. And like Armando Blunt, I don't think he could be a guy maybe that sets the edge. Armando Blunt is a guy that would probably be better, would be rotating more with the inside guys, or he'd be, I don't think he'd be setting the edge. Lightfoot would be setting the edge. A guy like Hayden Lowe, who I think is poised for a really good year too, or well, really a year one. I think Hayden Lowe can be that guy. I think I gotta pull up some of the other guys. I can't think of their names right now. I think it's gonna be a rotation at first before it turns into them, one guy kind of finding his way and finding that role. I know that they're gonna be a team, and even Booker Pickett could be a guy, but I think they're gonna find their way into, I guess, rotations is always something that you need. Is something that Heatherman loves doing. He prefers having a lot of different guys going in for defensive linemen. That's the whole point. You want to have these guys as fresh as possible. I think it's important that you have rotation. You have a lot of different guys, because last year it felt like as good as Bane and Mesidor were, it felt like you didn't have a lot of guys that were right behind them that could really set out and kind of match that production. Because if they were off for a few plays, Lightfoot and Blunt weren't able to match that production. When you add more depth of another year of Lightfoot, another year of Blunt, Hayden Lowe, and then David Wilson, who will kind of replace having a star edge, I think you're kind of poised for a lot more depth and a lot more rotation that keeps these guys ready to go over the course of an entire game and an entire season. Because there were times where in the fourth quarter, Bane and Mezzi are gassed as a team goes on a 2-minute drill or goes on one of those no huddle sets or situations, which was a lot of times this year. Louisville, SMU, Ole Miss, like a lot of that times, and they were on the field for a long time, and they were tired, and they weren't able to match that production that you would wanted from them because of they got fatigued, which is totally fair. I love Hayden Lowe. He was getting I didn't go to many spring practices last year, but there were the talk of him potentially even being like a backup or even getting looks at, I wouldn't say starter because it was obviously Bane and Mezzi, but being right there as a rotation guy right away tells you where he is and how well they see him. And the fact that he got hurt right away sucks. But I think right away I look at him and I'm like, he's got it. He's got that factor where he will be either a rotation player or he might set himself as being a starter right away in spring practice. Again, spring practice, we're going to see it. You're going to see it all. You're going to kind of see who stands out over the others. But just from afar right now, Lightfoot, it's probably Lightfoot's job for the taking, but Lowe's right there. I think Lowe's going to play a lot. I believe that. And and not only that, you also have Ashari Charles and Jordan Campbell and D'Anthony Lafayette are all true freshmen who are all 4-star pluses, also really good players that you're going to have as potentially rotation guys, whatever pieces you think. I'm very high on how the quality of this team paired. Even if Jason Taylor is a defensive line coach, and you have these guys who are young, very young for sure, inexperienced apart from Damon Wilson, for the most part. But you do it like if you're expecting the development that you're you're thinking of, you're expecting maybe a guy like Lightfoot to take a really take a leap, which I expect Armando Blunt to take a leap, or Hayden Lowe. I really do think he's got that kind of factor where he can take over right away. We'll see. I have it's one of the defensive lines, one of those things I'm intrigued. Obviously, I'm intrigued to see what it looks like without Mezzi and Bain, but I really do feel confident that it won't take that either that big of a step out, or I think they might even improve. I really love the way that defensive line looks. There's blue chip prospects on every side of the ball. I love what Heatherman has to work. Heatherman has so much to work with everywhere. He's got the green dot with Motore. He's 7th-year player. You have that veteran experience right there. The defensive line room, you have another year of, oh my gosh. You have Justin Scott and Ahmad Moten. You have Ahmad Moten and Justin Scott, another year of them. Ahmad Moten's obviously was a game wrecker last year. He's going to be a game wrecker again. Justin Scott in year 3, I expect him to take a leap. And then we just mentioned everything I said about the edges, which I think are super deep. You have some transfer guys, and you have some rotational pieces in that defensive tackle room, whether that be Jarquez Carter, Keanu Davis. There's a lot of pieces that you look at from the defensive tackle room. You also have a lot of, you can look at in a positive way. The cornerback room, the DB room, apart from losing Jacoby Thomas and Keontae, is largely unchanged. I love Omar Thornton. I think Omar Thornton kind of slides into I think Omar Thornton will slide into what Jacoby Thomas brought, but I could also see him playing the Keontae Scott nickel, or being the guy to get blitzes, in blitz packages and stuff like that. You have, Bryce Fitzgerald was a ball hawk as, part of your safety room. You have in your cornerback room another year of Damari Brown, another year of OJ, and I think OJ's looking like a guy that might be a first-round pick at this point. Another year, Ethan O'Connor, who I think is, he's got to have a bounce back from, the Natty itself, but I thought Ethan O'Connor had a relatively good year regardless. And Xavier Lucas, who had a really good year. Xavier Lucas, OJ Frederick, Damari Brown. Damari Brown might play in that slot. Maybe Ethan plays in the slot. I don't know. We'll see. But there's a lot of guys in that. That cornerback room is largely unchanged. The defense has a lot to I look forward to a lot, and I'm just saying, wow. I think it's going to be really fun. I think it looks really great. I'm excited to see what I think in spring camp. And you're going to see these guys stand out. You're going to see all these guys. You're going to see some people really harping on a lot of these guys and saying they look almost better than they did last year. That's the way that I feel like I'm going to look at this defense. Apart from the loss of Bain and Mesidor, and Thomas and Scott, I think they're retooling, redeveloping, have guys right away, and you have the guy who is essentially, in my opinion, the best defensive coordinator in college football at the helm right there. My confidence is through the roof with that defensive line. Through the roof. And we're through that defense in its entirety. So, yeah, I'm really appreciative of – I love what the team looks like, and we'll see more of it, and we'll definitely be able to kind of stop with the predictions and see more of exactly what it will look like as we get closer into March and everything kind of falls into place. But it's late February. There's nothing really going on. It's not even many recruits coming in or anything like that. So it's kind of a prediction or what we saw and what we kind of expect based on what I've been hearing and all of that. But yeah, I think I'm going to end on that. I really do appreciate you guys for tuning in, especially you, Gio, and everyone who tuned in. Thank you. As Falconer said, hit the like button. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to continue to try to do these every week and try to find more things to come up with and talk about, because it's just kind of a very slow part of the off season, and it's tough to think of things to talk about, but it's nice to have a nice community to talk about and everything. So yet again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Another episode of the Miami Collins Show Live, presented by FanDuel. I will see you guys next week. Peace.